You're watching Global Toronto. This is Global News at Noon.
Well, for the first time in 5 weeks, college students are back in class, but the labor dispute that kept them out is still ongoing. For more on that, I'm joined now by Warren Smokey Thomas, president of OPSU. Smokey, thanks for coming in. Good to see you as always.
Thanks for having me.
All right, what's the mood amongst members first day back at work?
Well, I haven't heard any complaints, so I'm usually only hear bad news. So I expect us probably extremely busy, very confusing, but my members, their college staff went back in yesterday to get organized for today. So like I say, I haven't had anybody complaining about anything. So
is there not some resentment, though, that they've been forced back on the job and their right to strike has effectively been taken away?
Oh, yes. No, there is that resentment lingers. But this is a group of unionized workers and an employer that have not got along for decades almost. Very acrimonious labor relations. The employer council relies on a very right-wing anti-union law firm to do all their bargaining. I've always said to employers, won't you build your own internal capacity? So it still goes on, but now we get ready for mediation, arbitration.
Right. I want to get to that in a second,
Okay.
but I wanted to ask you, students have voiced some mental health concerns, particularly at a town hall that Premier Wynne hosted just last night. We've got a pretty aggressive timeline here to try to make up these 5 weeks and the remaining weeks before Christmas. Is there any similar concern for teachers that this is just too much?
Oh yes, well actually my background's mental health. I worked in a psychiatric hospital my whole life, so I share those concerns. It does put an enormous pressure on college and university. Higher education is stressful on students to begin with. So my folks have already been trying to, the counselors are taking that into account. They expect to be very busy. I would hope that the Premier does a couple of things. One, the $5 million hardship fund's not near enough. The employer already had a $170 million surplus, so they can do more.
That's roughly, is it $500 payout per student who needs it, and anybody can get a refund if they want?
Up to $500.
Okay.
All right, and then the refund you have 2 weeks to decide. So I got, and again, once again, I'll apologize to the students and their families that got caught in between a very nasty labor dispute. But our members did go on strike in a lawful manner, but it really is regrettable.
Okay.
My hope for the future is that we can spend the next 4 years of the life of this contract trying to rebuild labor relations, trying to put them on a positive foot so that when we're in the bargaining it's positive rather than negative, and we have 4 years to do that.
All right, well, take us into the bargaining room if you can, because what has been the biggest stumbling block between the two sides here? Is it the use of contract workers or part-time workers?
Yeah, they're called sessionals, which are unionized, and yeah, they have to reapply for the jobs every 4 months. Sometimes they don't know they got rehired until like the course has already been going for 2 days, so they've got to play catch up. They don't get paid for prep time, student time, or anything like that. So, while it looks pretty good, $100 and some an hour for teaching time, well, you might have 2 hours in the classroom, but you might spend 12 hours in total working. So it takes that way down to like this. A lot of people, it's just a mill. People won't stay because they'd love to stay if they had a path to full time.
Okay, as you mentioned, this will go now to a mediator. Do you believe that your side now has the upper hand, that your right to strike has been taken away, and when those rights are taken away, the mediator usually looks favorably?
I would say this. A mediator will look at the facts that are put in front of them. The mediator in this case will have to consider things they've never had to consider before, such as the employer's ability to pay, which I don't understand because money wasn't the issue, it's other issues. So the mediators, they don't favor one side over another. I've been doing this for a long time and they're very fair, but you got to put your facts, your case. You got to have a very convincing argument to get anything you want from the mediator.
Is that something you'll use to convince the mediator now?
Oh yeah, sure, we'll try everything. I mean, like we'll have a very extensive brief. I've already picked a legal counsel to go with our staff and the bargaining team to the arbitration session, and we're quite good at that. Actually, we do okay in arbitration, but arbitration is always the least desirable outcome. It's better if the parties can agree to a deal, maybe agree to disagree on one or two things, but you make some movement both ways. It would have been optimum, I guess.
Well, we'll be watching this, obviously, as it moves forward. Warren Smokey Thomas, good to see you as always. Thanks for coming in, Smokey.
Thanks for having me.